Three, two, one, go.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force podcast, a podcast from three Puerto Rican friends coming together to do deep dives into Star Wars and other nerd-related media. This is season 2, episode 21, and today we will once again be talking about Star Wars. So, you guys have watched us. We've done a few character profiles and stuff. So today we decided to do the profile of one of our favorite baddies because, come on, we have to show our love to the dark side of the Force as well. So today we will be talking about the original Sith apprentice, Darth Maul. So I think to get us started, maybe general impressions of the character when we first saw him in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I mean, before we get going, it was interesting when you were mentioning that we've done some other character deconstruction, and I was thinking about that. And I'm like, holy shit! Like we have this is, I think, the third or fourth that we've done. All of the ones that we've done so far have been the dark side. Is Boba Fett, Palpatine, now Darth Maul. I don't know.
We did do Qui-Gon Jinn though.
There we go.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, we've only focused on the dark side.
On the dark side.
But there we go. Qui-Gon balances it all though.
And if you count the Clone Wars arc of Yoda that we did, we kind of did a profile on Yoda too. So a little bit.
Same but different.
But different.
But different. Yeah.
But
the same.
Anyway, I mean, I think this is very timely discussion though, right? Because like we were talking on our previous Bat Batch reaction video, right? Like the return of the Pikes to the show, and based on the timeline of where it's at, like lots of people, ourselves included, have been speculating that a certain former Sith apprentice would be doing his return. So it's extremely timely. Even if he doesn't show up, it's still like a nice way to kind of start talking about Darth Maul again, thanks to the Pikes and the Pike Syndicate, and obviously Crimson Dawn by extension. But like you said, Nani, his first appearance was in episode 1, The Phantom Menace, 1999, when Star Wars just came back in all its glory into the big screen. Needless to say, at least for me, that was a big deal. I was like, that was a very anticipated movie for me. I was, I think, 11 at the time. So like it was the perfect age to see episode 1, because you didn't have any of the baggage of being a jaded, cynical fan of the original ones. It's like it was like this youthful, all Star Wars is good, and I just want more Star Wars. And I just remember being at the movie theater, and all of a sudden when Darth Maul just whips out the lightsaber and turns on the second blade, it's like, oh Lord, everything's different. It's like the world is not the same, and it cannot go back. And I had the action figure. My neighbor had the Darth Maul lightsaber. I had the Qui-Gon Jinn lightsaber. So obviously it was like, it was just kids on the street beating each other to a pulp with plastic sticks. It was a beautiful time. But I do always remember being underwhelmed that Darth Maul just died immediately, right off the bat. In that movie. So and at the time, that's I didn't know that there was going to be Clone Wars or Rebels or Solo or all the countless things that we've had Darth Maul in. So it was kind of like it was bittersweet. It's like, oh, you're awesome, but I want to see you again. But I did remember after that, reading Darth Maul Shadow Hunter, I think was the name of the book, because I'm like, oh well, I need more Darth Maul in my life. So
you need more.
the little novels that came out at the time that were like adaptations of Phantom Menace, but through the point of view of some of the characters. Yes, I had one for Padme. I had the one for Darth Maul. Then I bought the Darth Maul Shadow Hunter book. And I was just like, please, more Darth Maul. Until obviously we got that wish fulfilled with the Clone Wars, but we'll get to that. But those were kind of like my youthful impression of Darth Maul without really knowing what lay underneath the surface.
Yep. What about you, Mo?
I've always had a soft side for the dark side and the evil characters. So when Darth Maul came out, it was just perfect. Like it had, was black and red, that whole like the horns. It's like you just
Oh, yeah.
have like
Beautiful.
you could not at that age you were like, clearly that's the bad guy. Like you cannot like you can see it. It's unfortunately the yellow eyes. It's like it's such an iconic character. Like I still remember.
Yeah.
Like and I don't think he was in the movie that long, considering how long the movie was.
No.
But every moment that Darth Maul was there, I was like, oh, I just want to see what's happening. It's like walking with Palpatine and like mysteriously like going against Qui-Gon, and it's like just then with the motorbike, the flying, like everything
he's a
about
gangster.
everything about this person is like badass. Like that first like, and then adding the anticipation of like, we haven't seen like a new lightsaber fight in so long, and then Qui-Gon pulls like the lightsaber and he's flipping around off the bike on the desert, and it's like such a beautiful scene. Like you actually felt like, oh, like shit is about to go down, like and you just enjoy every bit of Darth Maul being there. I guess like I wasn't like that taken aback at the time that Darth Maul died. It's like, okay, I guess it's part of the story, because it always seemed like it's just the apprentice. But it's such a, I think the fact that those small minutes where Darth Maul is on screen are so impactful all the time. Like I love like that Naboo scene when everything opens up and just they're just standing with the call and like it's just waiting. I'm like, I'm here to take down an army, and everybody's like, just go the other way.
Like, whoa. Like, I don't get paid enough for this. I'm going I'm taking the long way.
And then
Like
very gentlemanly, like they'll take off their robes,
beautiful.
And it still holds up amazingly.
It's amazing. It's amazing. And that whole I think we've talked about this on the best like saber battles. Again,
A Dance of Sabers, one of our best episodes ever.
Yes, so please go check that out if you want a little bit more Maul and sabers. But and then the fact that Maul was just like, there's so much acting going on with the face and like the expressions and like you can see like how the character just embodies that dark side. It was like to me that scene where he's pacing and waiting for the force shield to open up, and Qui-Gon is like just meditating, and you can see like that is the essence of like the impatience and the patience. They both figure it's their virtue, but it just encompasses everything. And I just then killing like Qui-Gon so impactful, like the Jedi we come to love, like and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, Qui-Gon is also dead. Like
he's like, wait, my favorite villain and my favorite character all died in the same way.
What happened?
Like, what's happening?
Wait, rewind.
You just can't get enough of them. Like you just want them more. Like, and maybe that's the power. Like it's they have so much gravitas about it. And it's later on, I guess we'll talk about it, but that we flesh out Maul's story. But that was just the first impression. This is like a complete Sith badass. This is what a Sith should be like. What about you, Nanny? That was
because you were a teenager at the time, so you had you did have that cynicism of teenage angst. So
so I was in high school when Phantom Menace came out, and I was a huge fan of the originals. And I, obviously I didn't go to the premiere of the originals. I'm not old enough for that, but I did, see them when they did the re-release and everything. So this is the first time that I've gone to see, at the release to see a Star Wars film. So I was like super excited. And Maul really was one of my favorite things about that film. I had my issues with it because I thought it was too boring at the time with like all the politics going around. Now
trade routes.
Yeah. It's like, what are you doing in a Star Wars movie? You're talking about trade routes. since then, I think Phantom Menace might be my favorite of the prequel trilogy, actually. So, and one of the things that still holds up the most about it really is Darth Maul. Like, we complain a lot about the, how the CGI just has been terrible and all these things, but the character design, the makeup on Darth Maul is still just fantastic. It's so evocative, like Mo was saying, and you see his like constant rage. Sometimes he like barely talks, but he like his clenching his jaw and just like the constant menace. And I mean, the only Sith we've ever really had was Darth Vader, who's like behind a mask and a cowl and everything, so you don't see any of the expressions or anything. And then Darth Sidious, who was always like behind the cowl, and you couldn't really. So Darth Maul was this first like really evocative, like emotional Sith that you actually got to see what was going on in his face. And I also thought it was really cool that he's kind of, the Jedi at this point are overconfident. They think the Sith don't even exist anymore. And then Darth Maul is like the first one that they encounter. And it's like,
immediately whoops their ass.
Holy crap, there's a Sith Lord. What the fuck? Why didn't we even realize that they were around? We didn't even sense them. What is happening? And then it takes 2 of them to fight him. And he holds his own the entire fight. Like you said, manages to kill Qui-Gon. And then obviously, we see that, we think that he gets murdered because he gets literally cut in half.
I mean,
but
depends on your point of view.
Yeah. Obi-Wan high ground.
Obi-Wan high ground.
Which is bullshit in that movie, right? Because like technically Maul had the high ground. So what's this high ground bullshit, Obi? Where did you learn this? Clearly you won the last time you had the low ground.
Yeah.
But Obi-Wan always has the high ground from a certain point of view.
From his point of view.
Oh shit. Good point.
Yes,
it's a metaphorical high ground.
Well, yes. There's actually
a
Reddit post on this.
Analyzing the position on it, and from Obi-Wan's point of view, he had the high ground.
Yeah, they actually analyzed it. That's why. And then the only place where Obi-Wan doesn't have a high ground, according to the theory, it's in sand. Because it's ever shifting, ergo, he never has the high ground. But it's also why everybody tends to hate sand.
But Darth Maul was thriving in sand though, because he whooped Qui-Gon in that fight. Qui-Gon had to retreat.
Yeah, but Qui-Gon is not Obi-Wan. Qui-Gon does not have Obi-Wan high ground.
Good point. I'll have to read this Reddit thread.
Oh yeah.
Well, anyway, I remembered. I remember that I was really disappointed that they killed him, and that he was in it so little. He only has like a couple lines, I think, in the entire film. And I was like, and his fight, like the choreography of the fights are so realistic, like compared to obviously what we got in the original trilogy. And then you see this, and it's like, this is a masterpiece. What is happening? So I remember being really upset about it. I was like, well, we know we're probably not going to get Darth Vader at all till like the very end. So why did we get rid of this awesome bad guy right at the beginning? Like, what is happening? And obviously we didn't know we were going to get Clone Wars and Rebels. And then he ended up being one of the most fleshed out characters. So I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to see him again. But at the time when I saw the movie, I was like, damn, why? And then when I would rewatch him, I would get upset again. Like, why did they kill him? He was so awesome. But
such a good character. Wow.
I know.
And it's hard not to see, like, I've never seen anybody gotten chopped in half and survive.
No.
So whatever little information we got, it made sense. Like Darth Maul just died. Like,
yeah, he was cut in half. But as we magically find out in Clone Wars, Darth Maul is damn resilient. And he survived. So, Clone Wars.
Survivor.
Big question though. Like, as I know you saw Clone Wars fairly recently, thanks to the efforts of this podcast. But before you went into seeing the show, did you know that like Maul was like back in the fold of the Star Wars universe, or was it a surprise when you saw it? Because I mean, it's hard to keep a spoiler, I mean, keep secrets, right? When it's been years after the fact,
been around
when a reveal happens. So I don't know if like you knew about it or heard like or knew if you did, if you knew what to expect in terms of like how he came back.
Okay, so I knew that he was in the show. I never actually saw any of the clips or anything, so I didn't know how they actually brought him back. I was like, but wasn't he cut in half? Like, what the hell?
Exactly. How do
So
you come back?
yeah, how do you come back? I didn't know in what, how they were bringing back, like for what purpose, like what his role was in it. But I knew that he was back because it's like a big deal. And even if Josbando, I don't think, Josbando had seen Clone Wars. He hadn't watched Rebels, but I think he'd watched some of the fights in Rebels too, just because he loves YouTube and he had watched some of the fights and stuff. So I knew that he was around. But whenever he started talking too much about it, it's like, shut up. I'm going to get to watching it at some point. So just like, don't spoil it. Just leave me be. So when you first see him, it was insane because it's, it's Savage Opress going after him. I mean, even like that episode, like I knew Darth Maul was going to show up in this show. I just didn't know which episode or anything it was going to be. And then when Mother Talson like tells Savage, like, you have a brother, and you see his face like in the crystal, it's like,
oh. Yeah, like, oh Lord, here we go.
It's happening.
And then when you finally see him and he's like attached to like these, like an arachnid lower body, and like his horns are overextended, and he's insane and incredibly powerful. And it's like, what the hell? Well, that's what happens when you're in isolation with half of your body under a cave.
Yeah, that's how I felt after, a couple of months of COVID quarantine. So I don't blame Darth Maul at all.
I've always wondered do they shave those horns? What's the deal? Do they just chop it? Like,
if I had to do an educated guess, I would imagine it's kind of like a cat. You know how cats keep their nails sharp just by scratching on poles and shit all the time. I think Maul, it's just like scratching his head on a wall or something every once in a while. So I mean that's just an educated guess, right? Because I'm not a expert on Dathomirian biology. Sabrakian, sorry. Sabrakian biology. Yeah.
Well, or it could be something like Hellboy, kind of like always shaving the.
True.
We don't know.
Possible.
But it's a curiosity, that's for sure.
or maybe it's
as their path. Like are the horns like? Do they grow and retract depending on their mood or what's happening? We don't know.
Yeah, because I would think that maybe it is like after they reach a certain age, they like stop. But you could tell in that episode that when he's full of rage and madness, they are really extended. And once Mother Talson like calms him down and brings him back to reality, they do retract. So I think it might be tied to that, like how much like the hatred and the madness inside that just like expresses itself in the horns. I don't know, but the character design, like when the horns were.
Maybe she shaped him down with Night Sister magic. It's like Night Sister magic haircut. Yeah.
but no, the design of when he has like the tentacles and then the tarantula legs or whatever it was, and then like the overextended horns, he looked terrifying. Like he was already terrifying to begin with, but this was like next level. Like even Savage, who's like twice his size, was like, what the hell is this?
I don't want to mess
with but Savage was twice the size because he got juiced up with Night Sister steroids, right?
I know.
So he's not naturally that big. So he's cheating. He's basically like Black Magic Captain America. He took some steroids and then he's big. He didn't earn it. Darth Maul was lanky, but he was like Bruce Lee. He doesn't have a lot of muscle, but he'll kick your ass through sheer skill and will, as opposed to Savage. He was engineered. So that's why I like Maul will always be superior to Savage in my book.
Oh no, definitely. I agree with you. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I do love then Mother Talson brings him back to reason, and then he gets like the cybernetic legs, which was fantastic. The way he moved and everything was like super cool. I don't think they animated as well in Rebels. I think he looked better in Clone Wars, but that's my 2 cents on that.
I will always agree with Clone Wars having superior animation to Rebels. Always. Yeah, but Mo, you have didn't you buy it last at Orlando or Chicago, the mall sculpture with the
I wanted to. That was my. So if anybody out there knows where to get it, please let us know. But there was I think it was it Orlando? I think it was. was it
Just like a
Chicago?
Hot Toys or something.
It's probably one of those things, or like a sideshow or something. And it was like, it's like the arachnid Darth Maul, just like
Oh
ready to
wow, yeah.
attack. That's huge. This thing is like probably yay high and like big. It's like
Wow.
Should have gotten it. That's a beautiful piece for for any mantelpiece.
any mantelpiece. Yes.
Yep.
Even for non-Star Wars fans, that's a great piece of art to have in your living room.
Oh, yeah,
It's amazing.
That's just a piece of art. It's beautiful. And but that's when we like seeing that Maul coming back. I love like I love the fact that they fused it with like spider legs and like that whole like, you know, spiders are always like living in the shadows and shunned by like it's I always find it funny like that fear of spiders that people tend to have.
Yeah.
Because it's, I mean, they're usually the other way around. Like spiders tend to be beneficial, like animals have around.
Yeah,
they
get rid of other insects.
get rid of like worse insects and things that are in harm's way. But the fact that they're so otherworldly to us because they have 8 legs, 8 eyes, like and it that was like the evocation that like Maul had, like just completely chunned like away in the dark, just festering in that hatred of like everything that transpires. Like this, like I can see why he became that devilish looking being, because it was like, you know, you were taking as a kid from your family, you were made
Another one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, another one. You were they were forced into the dark side without their choice. Like it wasn't even a choice for them. And then being promised you're gonna be the next apprentice, and then Palpatine as always playing, as Goose said, 6-dimensional chess. This is just like another baby under like the realization that he never stood a chance to actually go, like it must have been like such like enraging. And then to add salt to the wound, like a Jedi like a Jedi Knight or baby just chopped you in half when you were destined to be the greatest.
Yeah, well, Obi-Wan was really young when that happened. Yeah,
Obi-Wan was a baby.
True.
Ewan McGregor looked very babyish at the time. Like it's not the bearded,
rugged, beautiful master we know now.
That Ewan McGregor became was just, just this boy, like, and just seeing like, oh, now you're with your brother, who's also being like manipulated by the same people that manipulated in the first place. Like, it's such like a beautiful, like, from animal to then becoming like more, again, humanized legs. Like it's that transition, like how jaded he eventually becomes and like dissatisfied with everything, but that hatred is always there. And I think that's what distinguishes Maul from other characters. Like his evolution was always based on that anger, that lack of both. He never learned nobody loved him, and vice versa. He never learned how to even love himself. Like it was just, I hate who I am. Like, and that driving force, it must be staggering and infuriating. Like,
but I think that's the interesting thing, though. Oh, go ahead.
No, that he's still really resilient, though, even after all this, knowing that he was left for dead, that his master abandoned him, nobody came looking for him, but then his brother does show up, and then he decides, even though after being betrayed, he decides that he's still a Sith Lord, and now he's going to be the master, and he's going to make his brother his apprentice, and we're still going to follow this, and I'm going to get my revenge, and I'm still going to become incredibly powerful, and he's proves himself to be incredibly intelligent and a really good tactician. Like what he decides to do, with the whole syndicates and stuff and trying to rule the underworld and everything was genius. I mean, Papa Palpatine's mistake, I think, was revealing himself to the world. I mean, he was doing way better when he was in the background from the shadows, manipulating everybody. But once, because of his hubris, he had to show that he was the emperor. He had to show himself, it's me, I'm the one with the power. And that was the beginning of his downfall. Mm-hmm. But Maul's idea to start like a shadow organization, he would have been successful at that, I feel like. The problem was obviously that he was never able to completely let go of the rage and the need for revenge. Mm-hmm. So he took no real joy from trying to be like powerful. He like pretended like that made him feel better, but it didn't really. It just made him feel more shallow. And at the end, like he focused all of his energy into getting his revenge and eventually obviously destroying him.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's one of the interesting things about Maul is like all those things used as a mirror for Anakin, right? Because as we had discussed in previous episodes, like all the interesting thing of like having 3 different villains in the 3 different prequels is that there are 3 different visions of Anakin, and I don't think that narratively George Lucas really kind of like pulled the trigger on like being explicit on how each one kind of represents those things for Anakin. But the ideas are still there though. And with Darth Maul specifically, I mean, he kind of is the same character as Anakin is in that sense, right? They were both taken as children from a home that they both knew to be trained in this, wizard world, one for evil, right? And one for good. But, they both had different nurturing, right? Where one is beaten with, literally, right? Because Darth Maul was abused all of his life under Palpatine's tutelage, and just developed that pure rage through the dark side and through the abuse. Anakin, in a way, wasn't abused in that same way physically, but he was kind of emotionally abused in some sense through the emotional neglect, right? So they both ended in similar places of being consumed by the dark side because of how they were each neglected by the people that they trusted and loved, and where one was able to transcend that through family and the redemption through Luke. Maul never got to do that because Maul actually never knew what love was, never knew what family was, never knew what kinship was. So he had no way to better himself. And I think that's kind of like fast forward, right, into Rebels. And spoiler alert for people that have not seen Rebels, but I think that's kind of one of the genius things of that final scene, right, with Obi-Wan and Maul in the desert, which is like Maul tells Obi-Wan, it's like, oh, look what you have become, a rat in the desert. And then Obi-Wan, master of the comeback, is just like, oh, look what I have risen above. And it's just like, yeah, we see that Obi-Wan has transcended, right, and has been able to grow through all of his failures into like the master that he is in the desert. And Maul, he's the same broken boy, right? That was just whose ego and whose emotions and whose self-esteem was destroyed by Papa Palpatine, and he was never able to get over it, and that's why he was never able to redeem himself. And the last thing he says to Obi-Wan when he dies, right? It's like, oh, he'll avenge us. So he's still, even in his death, he's still thinking about revenge instead of like any other emotion. So it's kind of the opposite, right, of how Anakin died, because Anakin died the same way, right, in someone else's arms. But instead, like, Anakin does the opposite. He's like, oh, let me look. It's like he turns to the light side. It's like,
let me look at my son with my own eyes. Still.
So it's so in that sense, like it's the same journey. Only one is kind of engulfed in flames, and the other one is kind of purified at the end. So I mean, and it's interesting that they did this with a villain, right? Because most of the time villains don't get the time of day to be dissected and looked as in depth as other characters are, for the most part, protagonists, right? And sometimes not even protagonists get as much depth either. Because I would argue that, I mean, I love Rebels and I love Kanan, but I would argue that Kanan didn't get as much love in terms of like how much we're going and delving into his psyche and his backstory as Maul did in Rebels alone, I'd argue. But I don't know if you guys agree with that one, but It's
No,
kind
no,
of a perspective
it's
right
true,
now.
right? And it's interesting because Maul turns out to be one of the most intriguing characters in Rebels.
Mhm.
Like it gives Ezra a different choice from what is being thought, and
Mhm.
the approach Maul takes, it's not the approach of like, I'm kidnapping you. It's like,
Yeah.
he always gave Ezra the choice to join him. It was always, I mean, there could have been, manipulative tactics and whatnot, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
but
Yeah, but
it's
he could
not.
have easily just
Yeah,
kidnapped
you
him
could have
and
just
forced
kidnapped
him.
him, or
Yeah.
forced him, but the fact that I think Ezra actually could have given him that family, that
Yeah.
diverse experience to actually make him transcend. Because at the moment Maul finds Ezra, he has a little bit transcended the duality of the Force. Like it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, Sith, Jedi, they're kind of
Yeah.
all playing the game. Like I'm
Mhm.
neither. I'm not a Sith. I'm not a Jedi. I used to be a Force user. That's kind of how.
But he's not Bendu in that sense, where Bendu
No,
is
no, no,
neither because he's in the middle. He's still like firmly dark side.
no, no.
He's just like
He
not in the in the
exactly.
ism, right?
Well, it's more like it's more like a relativist at that
Mm.
point. Like, I'll just use whatever I need at the moment that will
Okay.
benefit me. If it's the dark side, then I'll use it. If it's
Mm.
some sort of like dark, like light side, like he'll probably use it. Like it's almost like I can pick and choose because I'm not
Mm.
bounded by any dogma at this moment,
Mm. Mm.
except the hatred that was in his heart, and that is the quintessential essence of the Sith. Like those emotions are the ones that gives you the access to the Force. So it's almost like he just became like the antithesis of like a gray Jedi would be, like a gray Sith,
He's a great Sith.
whatever you want to,
whatever that means. It's like,
whatever
oh,
that means.
that's a cool episode. Difference between a gray Sith and a gray Jedi. Whoa.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not in the middle. I'm still definitely dark side, but I have no master. I have no religion to follow. I do whatever I want. But I think it also came about because Palpatine, who had abused him his entire life, finally broke him when he showed up in Mandalore and then killed his brother and then just kicked his ass. Like, that was like completely one-sided. He was just like laughing, like flick, destroyed.
Yeah,
I mean,
it wasn't a fight. Yeah.
No, at the end he's just like begging for mercy, and Palpatine's like, the Sith don't deal with mercy. I will destroy you. Like you mess with
Palpy.
me, you try to start.
Palpy's able to do that, but then he's not able to turn off the lightning. It's just like, come on, Palpy. Come on, turn it off. Turn it off.
Yeah, I still don't know what happened there. But I think that, and to Mo's point as well, I think that Maul really was trying to find kinship. I mean, he started this relationship with his brother, but obviously he felt himself superior to his brother. So I don't think he ever exactly saw himself as the equal. And then he gets murdered. And then he kind of has to go into isolation again after Order 66. So, I mean, he's been driven insane a couple times and kind of come back every time a little bit crazier. And then I think when he meets Ezra, he does see in him this opportunity to form another kinship, because he could see that Ezra was having his doubts about, the nature of the Force as well. Obviously that goes sideways. And I think that's what finally makes Darth Maul kind of lose it. It's like, I'm done with this. I'm just going to focus. I'm trying to find Obi-Wan and kill him, because that's the only thing I feel now that is going to fulfill me, is to destroy the man that destroyed me. It's like, I can't go after Palpatine because clearly he can kick my ass. But at this point, he still thinks that he can defeat Obi-Wan, because the last time they had met, Obi-Wan was a little overwhelmed because Darth Maul started talking about the fact that he could Qui-Gon and all these things, and Obi-Wan still wasn't in a good place, so he started becoming angry about it. So he kind of had to retreat during that fight. So he probably thought like, oh, Obi-Wan I can take. Not Palpatine, but Obi-Wan I can probably destroy. And then he finds out that he can't.
No, because Obi has the high ground.
That's the high ground.
Even in the sand, he had the high ground though. So that Reddit thread is actually maybe not true.
not true.
Well, okay, but I think let's compare that first fight that they had and then the final fight, because it's like a completely different dynamic here. Because I feel like the Phantom Menace fight, Obi-Wan is only able to win because of the rage. I don't think he was at the level that he could fight Maul by himself, but when he sees that Qui-Gon gets destroyed, like the rage overcomes him and it gives him more power. But in this instance, he's able to defeat him because of the opposite, because he's serene and he's transcended like his hate of him. And he knows his purpose right now is to protect Luke. So it is one of the shortest lightsaber fights ever, but I think it's one of the most beautiful ones.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Beautiful. Everything about that fight is, and in this one, it's the opposite. Obi-Wan's the one that's standing still, and you see Darth Maul pacing back and forth, because in the other one, Qui-Gon was calm, but Obi-Wan was pacing back and forth in the Phantom Menace one, like bursting at the seams. And this one, it's the opposite. Obi-Wan's like completely serene. And it's just it's so beautiful, because so far Darth Maul had been usually using just like the one lightsaber, not the double. And this time he just like goes on and lights both sides of the lightsaber, and then Obi-Wan goes through the different stances.
And then just waits.
Which one was it? I think Goose, the stances. Which one does he do?
Yeah, well, he starts off with like the big Obi-Wan thing from Revenge of the Sith. He with the two fingers pointed out. So it's like his youthful, like, I'm ready for action, General Kenobi thing. But then he's like, oh, no. I'm in a different place. And then he switches to Qui-Gon's pose from Phantom Menace. He's like, no, I learned the lessons of my master. And then he kind of goes into,
I think he does a double hand.
And then he goes into the Alec Guinness pose from A New Hope. And it's like, I have transcended. So he goes into those three stages of those poses. Which I think, it was great visual storytelling, right? But to your point, I think like the difference between like the fight in Phantom Menace and in Rebels is that there are different fights, literally and figuratively, right? One is very long and elaborate, and one is very short and simple, quote unquote. I think the main difference is not that, is that one is an external fight, right? The one in the Phantom Menace is about the literal physical clash between Jedi and Sith, and like how they're matching toe to toe with their lightsaber combat. And the fight in Rebels is the internal fight of like, they're not fighting with their lightsabers. And the lightsaber is a tool. They're really like fighting with their souls in a way. So that's why most of the fight is just them looking at each other in the dark after, Darth Maul kicks the sand to turn off the fire, the fire that was between them. But the biggest thing that I can compare it to, I don't know if you guys have seen the Jet Li movie Hero, but there is a scene in that movie. I love that movie. But there's a particular scene there, and actually, like, I was just remembering, holy shit, there's a Star Wars connection to that movie. There's a scene there where Jet Li is fighting Donnie Yen, who was in Rogue One as Chirrut, and the fight, and like one of the cool things about that movie is that each fight has a color theme. So like visually, the movie is just stunning. But that first fight, which is basically my favorite fight of that movie, they're fighting like in a chess hall, and there's water's dripping everywhere, and like there's just like this old man playing like the Chinese instrument that I forget the name of right now. But the fight is them in their mind, and all of the fight is like in black and white, like these super saturated. Not saturated, you can't saturate white, but like the super blown out whites and blacks, but the whole fight is in their mind. And then after like a 5-minute fight or whatever, they fight in real life, and all of a sudden the fight ends in a couple of seconds because they just had that fight.
They already went through all the motions, and
so that's the biggest analog I have. Obviously this fight from Rebels is based on other samurai film, right, that inspired Filoni and all the gang down at Lucasfilm. But visually, I think that fight that I was mentioning from the movie Hero is kind of what was happening, right, in Rebels. It's like they're getting to know themselves from within, not as much as without, right, and in the external. So that's the main difference of how those two fights, Phantom Menace and Rebels, go out. It's just they're fighting completely different planes.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that absolutely that makes total sense. That connection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It is also an emotional fight, like because and this can be like why it also evokes like more anger on Maul's side, because from Maul's perspective, like, he killed Obi-Wan's master. He killed Sabine. He killed
Satine. Jesus.
like it for all intents and purposes, like Maul was probably expecting a hatred from Obi-Wan.
Yeah. At least
And-
any kind of reaction, because Obi-Wan was just like, yeah, any type of like visceral reaction. I'm pretty sure that's what he was expecting. I think he was expecting for Obi-Wan to like mirror his rage. It's like, I'm this much rage, you have to feel the same rage because I did this to you. So and he didn't get what he was expecting. Yeah. And I think that completely threw him off.
Yeah, that's where that's when Maul loses that fight. When he finds out that all Obi-Wan has at this moment is just like unfazed equanimity. It's just like, there, like, I accept everything you did to me. I probably do not love you for that, but I also do not harbor any hatred towards you. Like,
I found my higher purpose.
And it was almost like on a very. That's what I loved the ending of that fight. It was like so much compassion that Obi-Wan was exuding or like bringing forth to, like, because on the one hand, Obi-Wan probably understood like all of that hatred as well, especially hatred directed towards one single person, because for Maul's perspective, it was Obi-Wan that took everything away, and from Obi-Wan,
both. It was like Maul thinks that Obi-Wan took everything from him, and Obi-Wan thinks that Maul took everything from him.
So it's like, and at that moment, like, that's where that phrase, like, oh, look, like, look what I transcended, like, Obi-Wan was speaking to that hatred, to that anger, to that unprocessed emotional angst, like, and then in reality, that's, most those strong emotions are very difficult to handle with, like, most might, if somebody that harbors hatred towards someone will probably live their whole life with that hatred, like, unless they process it internally. That we're wired to just like follow those emotions. It's hard to break away from those, and when and that was Obi-Wan's high ground, the emotional
emotional high ground,
bringing it back.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it is very telling that Darth Maul used the same move that had defeated Qui-Gon Jinn, and Obi-Wan saw right through it, and that's like the moment where he destroys it, where you can see that difference of like what you have transcended and what you haven't, because Maul is still trying to use the same move to use years and years ago, and probably doing it on purpose just because this is what I used to kill your master kind of mentality, probably. Right. And and then Obi-Wan, like, I see right through you, but destroyed. And the fact that he did find some comfort, I guess. I think he really did go there wanting to die. Like, I don't think he had really made any connections, and maybe if killing him would have been a short-lived, I think, happiness for him, he wouldn't have been satisfied with that. So I think when he realized that Obi-Wan had become so much stronger, he could have run away, but he didn't. I think at this point it's like, just destroy me, because there's nothing. I mean, I can't destroy you, I can't destroy Palpatine. I'm going to live with this need for vengeance the rest of my life. I'm just going to end it now. So obviously, Maul being who he is, he can't end it without the fight. Like, he can't just give up and be like, lay down and immolate himself. Like, he needs to go in a fight. But I still think he did want to die at that point.
Probably. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
But
which is so sad.
it is sad, but it's also a culmination of
Mhm.
his life. Like
Mhm.
that, it's a sad. Maul had a sad. That's there's no
Yeah.
denying that.
Mhm.
Very unfortunate set of events that put him on the path of destruction, and that like I've seen that. I think I saw that scene before I watched Rebels, then watch it once I watch Rebels, and I love how it ends. Like, oh, he will avenge us. Like to me, that's very cryptic because it can be seen. And I don't know how you all like understood that phrase. Like, who's
Oh,
us?
I understood it as in this is the chosen one, and there was a prophecy about the chosen one defeating the dark side, and the fact that the chosen one would kill and destroy Palpatine and all his plans. Because at the end of the day, even though he hated Obi-Wan because he cut him in half, he hated Darth Sidious more because he abused him his entire time, sold him this dream, and then just abandoned him. And then he wanted all of Darth Sidious' plans to fail. Like in Clone Wars, right before Order 66, he gets Ahsoka, but he had planned on getting Obi-Wan and Anakin, and he said that the reason he did that was because he wanted to kill Anakin, because Anakin was meant to be his next apprentice, and without Anakin, his plans were going to fail. So, I mean, from the beginning, he was trying to make it so that, you know, Darth Sidious would fail. But, I mean, Anakin eventually does kill him, but then the new trilogy brings the Palpatine back, so whatever.
Let's not go into Rise of Skywalker. No, but Mo, what you're saying, like, I think that literally when he says avenge us, he does mean specifically Obi-Wan and Darth Maul.
Yeah.
I think he is speaking about the both of them directly because their enemy is the same one, right? Like, even though he's fighting Obi-Wan, their common enemy is still Palpy, right? Palpy is the one that's kind of like drove them all into like these hiding spots, right? Where like Darth Maul has to like also be hiding in the shadows, even though he's not right in the desert. He was still hiding, right? In Malachor, wherever he was. And so was Obi-Wan because of Palpatine. So quite literally, I think that he was talking about that when he like looked right longingly into Obi-Wan's eyes, and it's just like, he will avenge us.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's such a beautiful like, and I think at that moment, the fact that he equated them as they're both equal at that moment. Like they've been harmed and they've been completely destroyed by this person. Like Palpatine destroyed both their lives. Like and it's all so maybe and that was probably the death that he was looking for. Like there was peace in that. Like
he was still thinking about
and
he was still thinking about the vengeance, but he found comfort in the fact that maybe his vengeance, not by him but somebody else, was going to fulfill that desire for vengeance. So I think at the end he was comforted by that. So
but and this I don't know enough about like the roots of words. I'm sure revenge and avenge have same roots, but they're
I would assume so. They mean the same thing, only slightly different, right?
But it's an interest because like then what's I don't know. Now I want to look at what's
it's like the difference between assassinating or murdering. It's like it's all the same thing. It's only the intent, right? It's what makes the word mean something a little bit different.
Well, at least culturally, I don't know if it has to do with the actual root, but I feel like avenge has a more positive connotation and revenge has a more negative connotation.
Yeah, it's like I haven't looked it up in the dictionary now, but if I would go with what you're saying, right, where revenge is like vigilante justice more or less, and avenging is kind of like something that's condoned by the society. It's like between a pirate and a buccaneer, right? Where like a pirate is just like not sanctioned, and then buccaneers were sanctioned by the government or something like that. Maybe I'm mixing up my terms, but if you know about pirates in the Caribbean, then you know what I'm talking about. So excuse my lack of terminology if I'm using them wrong, but you know what I'm talking about. You pirate nerd.
So sorry, I had to look for it. So according to dictionary.com, they used to mean the same, but
it's a cultural thing probably.
But as time changed, avenge became completely restricted to inflicted punishment as an act of retributive justice or as a vindication.
Yeah.
We were right. We were right.
The
We were right.
revenge implies inflicting pain or harm to retaliate either for real or fancied wrongs. And it's actually more on a personal, less concerned with justice and more of just inflicting harm. So I think at that moment, then just by how Maul expressed it, then there is a transcendence. Like it's not about just the personal, like
just me anymore. Yeah.
It's more like we will both be avenged. Like it's more so Maul's death is actually Maul's transcendence. That's what he was looking for. He wasn't.
So you're saying that Maul became one with the Force and he turned to the light side? He's gonna be a Force ghost in Rise of Skywalker talking to Rey?
That would be amazing.
I don't think he turned to the light side. I don't think he turned to the light side,
but maybe it could be the equivalent of the light side
of the middle,
of the,
or for him
for the like the transcendent. So hey, it'd be really interesting to eventually see the ghost of Maul and
Darth
Obi-Wan
like, playing badminton together. Like they're friends now.
Yeah.
I'm all for it. It was like whatever. Let's all be friends. Let's just find a commonality, some common ground, and just become besties in the Force.
Well, I mean, I do feel like in that moment they both perfectly understood each other and themselves.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So as sad as it was still like an incredibly beautiful and impactful moment that I did not expect. I knew that confrontation was gonna come, but when I saw that episode and the fight was over in like a second, I was like, "What the hell just happened?" Rewind. Like, wow, that is intense. It's
speaking
so good.
Speaking honestly though, or asking honestly, right? Did you get when you guys saw that scene for the first time? Did you think or expect or want it to go different? Because I for my part, when I saw it the first time, I was like expecting and wanting the flashy fight scene and kind of being somewhat like disappointed, and then like with rewatches I was like, no, this totally makes sense, it clicks better, and completely turned around. Did you guys have feelings similar to that, or were you always like on board the minute you saw the episode?
I thought it was kind of perfect, like right away.
But then again, I think both Nanny and I saw Clone Wars further down. So we kind of need, like, I don't know, at least in my sense, like it just perfect. Like it was just like, because if one scene I really hated was seeing Yoda like flapping around.
Oh yeah.
So I and then we have already seen an old Obi-Wan fighting, like so just how stoic and like sad it all was, and the tension. I thought it was just always perfect.
And it was like
cool. So it's just me. So it's just me. It's fine.
It happens. We can have differing opinions. Yeah, it's amazing though. But anyway, I think we've been going on for a while. Any last thoughts about?
I did have one thing. Lots of people after the Siege of Mandalore arc that culminated Clone Wars season 7, after they saw the dynamics between Ahsoka and Maul, there was a lot of chatter on the Twitterverse and the YouTubes and all that social medias about shipping these two characters together, because it's like these two characters that were left their orders because they have been abandoned, that are lost within what they're doing and have a common cause. And then obviously, well, not obviously, but then Darth Maul does at this point he's Maul, right? He's not Darth anymore. He's doing he does the Kylo Ren thing, right, from Last Jedi, like outstretches his hand and it's like, oh, join me and all that shit. So there was a lot of Ahsoka Maul shipping there for a minute, and I'm not a big shipping person, so like I wasn't on board, but I wanted to see if you guys had anything any thoughts on what happened in that episode or anything to add to that? I think that's a fun way to kind of shift the conversation away from Darth Maul's death.
I was actually gonna just talk about that, like Ahsoka and Maul. I don't see the chip, just because in my head canon Ahsoka doesn't bat that way for that direction.
Oh, okay.
But
I would think she goes to bat for both teams if I were to.
Probably.
She can do whatever she wants. It's up to her. We don't know anyway.
We don't know. We don't know anything. So exactly, we don't know anything. That's just my headcanon.
Which for now it's canon because we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We actually don't know. Yeah,
we don't know. But I thought the scene reflected more, and it kind of goes parallel, like what you were saying, Goose, that Maul in a way is the flip side of Anakin, because it was kind of like that Empire Strike Back, like join me, we'll do it together. I just saw it as that was like the Darth Vader moment.
So you saw more Empire and less Last Jedi.
Yes, I saw more Empire than Last Jedi.
That's a good way to frame it, actually, now that you put it that way, because it's the same scene in a way, but with different intent, right? Where Kylo Ren's kind of romantically asking Rey to join him. Obviously, Vader's doing more a father-son relationship, right?
Yeah.
In that sense, how you're saying it makes sense, because then Darth Maul is the Anakin proxy, right? And then it's like sibling or father-daughter, whatever you want to call that relationship.
Yeah. I didn't see the romantic connection there either. I think they might have actually made a pretty good like team.
Yeah.
Because
at that point, Darth Maul was right. And I think if Ahsoka had joined him, they would have done some serious damage. In fact, they might have been able to get Palpy down quicker.
Yeah. I think the problem obviously being that Ahsoka just doesn't believe him about Anakin. She lied to herself for a very long time, because later on in Rebels, she actually senses Anakin way before she actually meet him as Darth Vader, and she was still in denial. So it was too hard to break that image that she had of Anakin before. So there was no way that they were going to work with the premise that, Anakin is going to become the next Sith Lord. That wasn't going to work. If that wouldn't have been a roadblock to them, I think they would have been a pretty good team, because Darth Maul himself was already like breaking away from what the Sith religion is. Ahsoka had been like abandoned by the Jedi. And I think they could have been able to find a middle ground together if it wasn't for the fact that she can't imagine Anakin being a Sith, and Darth Maul can't let go of his rage, because the reason he wants her to join him, but at the core, it's because he knows she's powerful and it'll help him get his revenge. It wasn't really about the rest of the galaxy or doing anything for other people. It was all about his own fulfillment. But if he could have gone over that, and if Ahsoka could have believed him, I think they would have made a badass team.
Right. And I agree with that, because I also compare it to when Darth Maul wanted Ezra to be his apprentice. It's the same thing in a way, right? I don't think he genuinely was looking for that interpersonal relationship with another person, right? Through Ahsoka or through Ezra. Because at the end of the day, I think he kind of felt that the way to do things with people and like how you use them was the Palpy method, right? It's like you use them, and once they're of no use to you, you discard them, because the person's only valuable when they're able to contribute to your goals, and they don't have intrinsic value as a person. So that's why, like, I'm not so convinced that any of those pairings would have kind of worked to pull Darth Maul out into a redemption arc, because like he was not able to see beyond this person is just a tool for me to further my goals, as opposed to like, this is a person that I will have a relationship with, be it whatever. But it's not that. It's just, this is a tool and nothing more.
Well, he did learn from Papa Palpatine, so what can you expect?
The Master of Puppets. And if you haven't, that's a pretty good episode. Go check it out.
Go check it out.
So I think we're done for today, right? Unless anybody else has anything else to add.
No, I think.
Do we want to speculate on Maul maybe showing up on Bad Batch, or?
Well, I mean, if anything, Maul does have unopened storylines to be explored. That's at least what I took from Solo, the movie. So I would not be mad at all if Maul shows up. Actually, again, I guess we can all agree more Maul is okay.
More Maul is okay. Yeah, I would not be against him showing up either, but I think we've discussed it in the last episode. I think there's a bigger chance of like Dryden Voss showing up than Darth
It's
Maul.
the bait and switch.
Just because Darth Maul would be too public of a character to like show up already. Like he kept to the shadows for a while he was like running Crimson Dawn. So I don't think he would like, hi, I'm back kind of moment. So, but I would be okay with either actually. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. There's 3 episodes of Bad Batch left. So.
I think
There's 3 episodes.
The only if Maul does show up, then it might confirm those theories that Omega is force sensitive as well. Because then if you have a force sensitive character, then you need the force sensitive antagonist to that character. I'm still hoping that Omega's not force sensitive. I saw another. I see
Reddit.
that Reddit seems to be on board on Omega being force sensitive. I just want regular people at this moment.
I mean, it's interesting because they haven't done anything else to further the theory that she's force sensitive since the beginning of the season. So,
but what I was reading is that the theory is based now that Omega does have an inhibitorship because nobody has tested Omega for the inhibitorship, and Omega's
don't do that. No.
Oh no, don't do that to my heart.
No,
will be to prevent the force from expressing itself.
Oh, okay, interesting. Took a different turn to where I thought you were gonna go.
No.
I thought she was gonna go Order 66 and the badge, and it's like,
It was like it's like Omega's chip is meant to prevent the force from
expressing itself. Okay.
I see. Okay, maybe interesting.
Maybe. Again,
so we were gonna hedge bets. We were gonna hedge bets though between who's gonna show up if someone shows up, right? For the end of Bad Batch, between Boba Fett and Darth Maul. Who do we think it's gonna
be? Boba.
You gotta go with Boba.
Well, I guess we'll find out soon. So
3 more episodes, so we'll find out.
3 more episodes. So we ready to go?
Ready to go.
Well, anyway, thank you for joining us. If you love Darth Maul as much as we do, leave us a comment, leave us a like. We are Triad of the Force. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere where podcasts can be found. Just search for Triad of the Force. We have t-shirts and stuff too. And, just show us some love. Okay. So with that, may the Force be with you.